What's up, everybody? One last show before 2023, which gives us time to celebrate all that was 2022. Welcome in. This is Celtics Beat. I am Adam Kaufman. No Evan Valenti today. As you know, he did the show without me last week. I was taking some time around the holidays, and then he had COVID, but I think overall he's good. But at the moment, he's just taking a little vacation time for himself as well. So don't worry about Evan. You will see him again when we start off 2023. Most importantly, though, way more important than either of the two of us, it's today's guest, Gary Washburn. You know him from the Boston Globe. He's a good friend of this podcast. And of course, you know him from the A-List podcast as well, which he is on, part of the CLNS Media Network each and every week. Gary, happy holidays, and how are you?
Good, Adam. How's it going? Everything's good. Everything's good.
Everything's great. Everything's great with the Celtics. I know there was the little blip there to begin that homestand. Obviously, 3 losses and a couple to Orlando, and everybody's starting to wonder what the hell was going on. But obviously, they finished strong. The 4 wins to cap a 4-3 homestand. Heading on the road, 4-game trip begins in Denver on New Year's Day, which is Sunday, just a few days from now. But it was good to, before we get into some of the bigger picture stuff and player-specific team, all of that, it was just good to see them right the ship and not kind of, limp into the end of the calendar year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they struggle with teams with size. Orlando had size, and also the Celtics just didn't hit any shots in those 2 games. I mean, they probably should have won the second game. I think the first game was kind of Orlando was the better team. I think the second game was just one of those anomalies, Banchero hitting 6 threes, season high. I think Admiral Schofield entered the game with 13 threes for the season. He hits 3 in 9 minutes. One of those things where it just was their night. They got a lot of the breaks and then those offensive rebounds. So that's a game they could have probably scratched out, but they lost. And then the Indiana game, that first half was just miserable. Just giving up 71 points, trailing by 28. And then something happened, obviously, at that halftime. They played great ball since, kind of making a rally against Indiana, although I'm not going to give them big credit for rallying against the Pacers. I mean, they should have been in that position in the first place, but taking care of Minnesota, and Minnesota's a tricky team to play. I mean, they got a lot of skilled players. They don't always play so well. If you could look at Minnesota, they're 16-19 now. They lose so many close games. And then taking care of Milwaukee, and then Houston, which I thought was a tricky kind of a trap game. Houston had just won the night before at Chicago. A lot of good young players, and the Celtics are able to pull away and do what you're supposed to do against a young team like that. And then also the Clipper game. I thought that was probably their best victory of the season. The Clippers are a team that they were fully healthy. They came back and took the lead at the end of the third quarter. The Clippers did. And so the Celtics had to take that game. It was up for grabs, and they took it. And that's with Jayson Tatum scoring 1 point in the fourth quarter and missing all 5 of his shots, So I thought that was probably the more impressive victory. Obviously, people would point to the Phoenix game and be like, that's probably the best they've looked. There's the best they've looked, and then there's the most impressive win of the season. I thought the Clipper game was more impressive considering the fact that the Clippers were, at full strength, know how to win on the road, a bunch of veteran guys, and the Celtics did not have, let's say, A-game Tatum, and they were still able to win.
I had said a couple weeks ago on the show, just right before that homestand started, 7-game homestand, we kind of, the way we framed it, Evan and I, was like, what's an acceptable record for this homestand? And my feeling anyway going in was based on how well they played, where they were health-wise, the opponents, obviously, and I know Orlando came in playing well and did play well, but overall, Magic aren't a great team. So I looked at it and I said, 5-2. 5-2 is what you want to do on this homestand. If you go 6-1, great, but 5-2 is acceptable. And obviously, the slow start, like I said, they finished 4-3. Because of the way they finished, does that kind of make it okay, or do you still look at it and say the homestand wasn't what it should have been?
Yeah, it's a disappointment because I just think 5-2, if you get one of those Orlando games, it makes it a little bit better, or that Indiana game, but they should have started out, if you conceivably, 3-0 or 4-0 before they went into the Milwaukee game. So they flourished at the hard part. They beat Milwaukee, they beat the Clippers. They were able to overcome Minnesota, but then they lose to 2 games to the Magic, and the Magic are playing good ball. Like, they've continued to play good basketball, but obviously they're an up and down team. They lost by 20 to Detroit the other night. So those are 2 games I think that, we can discuss the whole, Tatum personal reasons thing missing on Sunday. I thought that was, and I get it. If the rumors are right, I haven't gotten it confirmed that it was a Deuce's birthday and that type of thing. We can discuss that if you want, but that was kind of an important game to miss, considering that they had lost the previous one, and that Orlando wasn't going to back down. And so I think 4-3 is a disappointment, but considering they won the last 4 and they're going on a streak, and then now they've still got the best record in the NBA. And now, we can talk about this too, Adam, now Brooklyn's the number 2 seed. Brooklyn just overtook Milwaukee, with Milwaukee losing to the Bulls. And so Brooklyn is now number 2, and now Milwaukee's number 3. And so I think kind of mission accomplished. You stayed healthy. You got Robert back. You're still number 1 in the East. Would you like a 5 or 6 game lead on that? Of course you would. But I think they feel like they're in a good position. They lost the number 1 seed for a minute. They got it back. Now they're a couple of games up. It wasn't as horrible as it appeared it was going to be, especially after that Indiana loss.
No, obviously, Gary, it just sounds nice. It doesn't matter as much because ultimately the conference is the most important thing when it comes to playoff seeding and all that. But it's not just number 1 in the East. It's number 1 in the entire NBA. Celtics are 26-10 right now. Like you said, narrowly in front of both the Nets and the Bucks. And if we it's not halfway mark of the season, but if you kind of look at it as the break in the calendar years, looking back, as I'm sure you know, and it's been tweeted all over the place, you might have tweeted it as well, the regular season games for the last calendar year, 2022, what was it, 60-22, which is the best winning percentage for Boston in a regular season since the 2008 title year. So, in good company, clearly. And as you just noted, there are some really good teams that are both near the top of the conference. There are a couple of good teams in the Western Conference as well. It's not like this is a layup to a championship. That doesn't exist. You can't forecast those things even going right into the postseason, let alone sitting here at the end of December. But is this the team, if we're to harken back to 2008, is this the group now that you think is really poised for Banner 18?
I think this is their best chance. You could say last year was their best chance, considering
they were right there.
Yeah, they were right there. But I think might be their best team since then. The 2010 team was good, but they were obviously they were a little flawed. They were a little old, long in the tooth, and we don't know what happens if Perk doesn't tear his ACL and all that. You can go back there 12 years, 13 years, but I think this is their best chance. I think the league, Adam, is vulnerable. Like, there's no great team in the West. It's if you want to say Memphis, you can. If you want to say New Orleans, you can. Phoenix just lost by 20-some points at Washington. They're taking it on the chin. They haven't been right since they went to the finals. Dallas is just kind of Luka. And so the West and the Clippers are a team, I think, that everything has to go right in terms of their health. But they could, but I think that they're the best team, some of the best team in the league at this point. They've beaten Milwaukee, they've beaten Brooklyn, Cleveland. They've had trouble against, lost twice. We'll see what happens when they meet again. But I think at this point, this is their best chance. If it's going to be in a year, it's going to be this year. To me, that's just how I look at it. It's not, just a matter of life and death. They'll still be a good ball club next year. They'll have everybody back next year. Everyone's under contract for next year. So it's not like they're losing, 5 free agents or something like that, or it's going to be the 90, the 97 Marlins. But I do think, though, considering the rest of the league, considering teams like the Lakers have been disappointments, the Warriors are struggling in the East. The Knicks just lost. Like, there's no great teams, in the league right now. I mean, Milwaukee could be when they get Middleton back, but Milwaukee's had some really curious losses. So I think this is the year for them, the Celtics. I think take care of business in the regular season, make sure Robert Williams is healthy and all that, get all your business done in the regular season, gain the number 1 seed, and then just go all out and try to get that banner 18.
Head coach Ime Udoka, that is his title still, albeit suspended, 51-31 last year, as people may remember. People are having fun with this on social media. 622 winning percentage. And then you have interim head coach Joe Mazzulla, 24-10 before this eye abrasion that I guess he suffered playing pickup hoops, and he has been out the last couple of games, but that's a 706 winning percentage. And then you have interim coach Damon Stoudemire coming in 2-0 so far, which only leads me to believe, Gary, that as soon as the video guy gets a crack at this, the other team may not score a bucket. But the serious question though, and I don't want to discount. I love Joe, and Joe. We'll get to this a little bit, but it's only a matter of time before the interim tag comes off. He officially is the head coach, and he has this job for years to come. He's the guy, but I guess it sort of makes me think a little bit. I use this example occasionally when I don't remember what year it was, but when Steve Kerr was out all those games, half the season, and it was Luke Walton filled in for him, and the team went 44-2 or some absurd record, whatever it was, and then obviously Walton goes on to other stops and doesn't have nearly the same success because the teams weren't even close to being as good. When you have just an elite team, a truly superior team, which obviously these Celtics are, is coaching, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but is it just not nearly as important when you get to a certain level as it is when you're a team that's either rebuilding or, mediocre and still rising?
Yeah, I do think coaching might not be as critical at this point, because this team has been together so many years and they know each other. They know Joe. Now they know Damon. But I do think it's important. Some of the tactical situations, ways to improve the defense, ways to get guys open shots, things that tactical stuff, strategy stuff, maybe not managing the game or, maybe, Tatum knows where he needs to be. Brown knows where he needs to be, but maybe devising new plays to get them better shots. Maybe setting up Robert Williams to get that, that alley-oop dunk. Maybe the little tactical things still think is very important. And I think that Joe has his own particular style, obviously, as we've seen, that's different from Ime. And he sticks to it. And I also think he's learning a lot on the run, on the fly. But I do think coaching's important. Is it important as it is in Oklahoma City or Orlando, where you're really trying to just develop guys and you're literally just trying to get them to get better, become pros, and get them to take a step toward, the semblance of playoff contention in future years? Yeah, you're coaching veteran guys. You're coaching Marcus. You're coaching Jayson, Jaylen. Marcus is in his 9th year. Jaylen's in his 7th, and Tatum's in his 6th. It seems like it happened yesterday. They're all drafted, but these are guys. These are veterans. Brogdon, veteran. Horford, veteran. Even Robert Williams is becoming a veteran, as much as we always see him as a real young guy. But that's a veteran ball club, and they know what to do, and they know where to be. And I think they've kind of partnered with Joe in terms of his coaching. And I think having a good staff with Damon and Ben Sullivan, Tony Dobbins, and a lot of those guys who have helped. But I do think coaching is important. I just think at this stage, it's a different level that Mazzulla is doing, a different job than, let's say, Jamal Mosley in Orlando or, Mike Brown in Sacramento, guys that are trying to carry their team to the postseason, or coaching a bunch of guys and trying to get them to be pros. These guys are pros, and they learned, I think, a lot, Adam, under Udoka. I think that the roughness, the tough transition has already happened. So I think they were ready to flourish this year, regardless of who the coach was. And I think that they're flourishing under Joe because they have a lot of respect for him, but also they know and they've been there.
So this doesn't really make a difference, Gary, because like I said, like Joe's the guy and Joe's going to be the guy going forward. But you've obviously written, among others, about the interim situation for Mazzulla. You've questioned in columns like, when is the team going to take away the interim tag and just give him the head coach label? And of course, very recently, just in the last few days, talked to Brad Stevens about it, and Brad essentially said, like, yeah, we're good with how things are going right now. It's not about labels, it's about, how we're doing, and we're doing well. So, that's a conversation for later. My feeling, and I've said this on the show, going back to when all of this happened, which obviously was right before the start of the regular season, my feeling has been that Joe was not going to lose the interim tag until Ime is fully out of the picture, which almost happened, obviously, in terms of the Brooklyn situation. Then it fell through and it didn't. So all of a sudden he's back in the shadows again, I guess you might say. But I guess I just wonder, and I don't know if legally it should make a difference, or if there's just a fundamental difference, or if there's no difference at all. You tell me. But I think that, we're not going to see Joe become head coach, no interim tag, until the Ime buyout is done and he is gone and just no longer here.
Yeah, I do think that there's some legal ramifications that have to go down over the next few months. And I think Joe's proven capable of being an NBA head coach. Okay, I don't think it's that. We're what, 36 games in, 44. I think it's 44% of the season. So he has shown he's ready. But I do think that they don't want, because if you name Mazzulla full-time head coach, you've got to make a decision on Ime. Like, either you fire him or release him from his contract, B, give him another position within the organization, whatever, or C, come to some type of contract settlement where, whatever. Like, so I think that they're kind of putting that on hold for now. And maybe it could be a situation where they're waiting to see if another team comes and gets them so they don't have to pay them. I think there's a lot of legal stuff behind the scenes, Adam, that is keeping the Celtics. And I don't think they also want to just put that pressure on Joe. Like, I just think they they've probably, and certainly promised Joe, listen, this is your job. We're not going to have you coach here a full season, and then put you right back to the assistant's box while, this is one of those things with Krzyzewski having back surgery at Duke or like the Kerr situation, where he's guaranteed he's not coming back. So I'm sure Joe knows that. And I'm sure the organization is fine. They've made some agreements. And I just think for us, of course, as the media, we want to know what's going on. Why isn't he the coach yet? Why don't you just make the call? And I think the Celtics are just being very meticulous with this whole situation. I think that that's how they've handled this the whole time, afraid to make a mistake. And that's understandable, And who knows what the situation with Udoka is? Are they talking on occasion? Are they checking in? Is he checking in with them? Are they checking in with him? Have they arranged for him to get some type of a therapy session or get some type of? Remember, he's still an employee of the Celtics organization. Have they given him a referral to a therapist? Have they dealt with him? Has he talked to anybody? We don't know. They've kind of stopped mentioning his name, and it gets some people in the organization kind of cringe when they hear his name. So I think there's a lot of loose ends to be tied up before they name Mazzulla the coach. But I do think Mazzulla will be the coach. That's for certain. For certain.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And obviously we keep talking about aspects of the coaching, and Joe's going to have to, I guess, chill out on the pickup for a little while, or at least wear goggles or something when he's out there, so that, he doesn't run into another one of these setbacks and he can't play. We want to, can't coach, want to see him on the sidelines there, as Jayson Tatum said, chewing the crap out of some gum. But let's talk about the players, whether it's Tatum, whether it's Brown, both these guys, playing at absurd levels at Tatum in his case, an MVP level. He's in that conversation. We'll talk about that in a little bit in some of the odds, but Jaylen Brown, is often this team's leading scorer on a given night. His numbers are very comparable with those of Tatum's, only a few points off. He's still averaging 27 plus points. He's, it was once upon a time, he was a guy that for us, not for him. He always, I'm sure, dreamed to the moon. But for us, it was like, all right, can we see Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown rather at a perennial all-star level, or is he always going to be kind of this fringe all-star guy? Some years he makes it, some years he doesn't. Right now, though, it's not all-star. We're talking all NBA. Are both of these guys, Gary, right now, as we approach the midpoint of the season, all NBA players?
Yeah, I don't know if they're all NBA. I mean, Jayson, I think, is first team. Yeah. Jaylen could be second team or third team. Yeah. I think both of them are playing like top. I mean, basically, your top 15 players.
Right.
And you throw in some, but you got to, assign some people some positions. But yeah, I think Jaylen's one of the top 3 to 4 forwards in the league at this point, and Jayson's could be number 1 or number 2. Now, if you want to consider Giannis a forward or center or however, and is Kevin Durant a guard and all, we can go through all that stuff. But yeah, I think both of them are top 15 players, especially Jaylen has reached that top 15 status. I think he was top, maybe 30 to 40 last year, and it's kind of crept up over the years. But I think this year he's playing top 15 ball, 27 points a game, just making big shots, taking over games. That fourth quarter, he had 23 points in the fourth quarter. He had 11, I want to say, in the Clippers game, 11 in the fourth quarter or 12 in the fourth quarter, to kind of help seal that win, even though the defense won it. Jaylen was the leading scorer. Tatum, I said, had 1 point in the fourth quarter. So Jaylen is getting that ability to take over games and to just have that stretch of 14 points out of 18 points, things like that, and carry the Celtics at times. And I think that takes a great deal of pressure off Tatum, and that makes the Celtics a more dangerous team. So, yeah, I think both will make All-NBA if we were to decide right now.
Is I guess the thing that I really am enjoying, as much as I'm enjoying, obviously, what they're doing on the floor, the thing that is most resonating with me throughout the start of this season, first half of the season, is just I'm really enjoying listening to the both of them. Tatum in particular, in talking with all of you guys, doing post-game media conferences or hopping on the random podcasts, which Tatum has done from time to time, and just how much more polished in many ways that they are in communicating the way they want to, and obviously the way they've grown and matured into leaders. They're just so, for lack of a better way of putting it, Gary, they're very clearly, and I think this was kind of always the case for Brown, but more so of late for Tatum in the last couple of years, just so comfortable in their own skin. And Tatum in particular, listening to him recently in terms of the way, he's kept some of the receipts, was asked the other night about, just where he and Brown are as a duo and their growth and their comfort playing together and their ascension and all of that. And it was Bobby Manning, our pal, that asked the question and brought up Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and Tatum sort of, clapped back with the, a year ago, you guys wanted to trade one of us, and now we're being asked about Michael and Scottie, and, we're not there yet, but that's where we aspire to be, obviously. But the most important thing is winning. He always brings it back to winning, and Jaylen does the same thing. Individual accolades are great, but team success is paramount. And so, I'm kind of rambling here, but I'm enjoying listening to these guys because I just think they're in such a great headspace that in many ways I think was helped by losing in the finals last year.
Yeah. I think,
don't get me wrong, you'll still take the final, you'll take the championship over losing, but,
yeah,
I think
I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying. Yeah. I think that, I think Tatum is just matured, and it's not a knock against him. Not saying he came to the league immature. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I'm saying 19.
Yeah, he's become more, like you said, confident and just open with us as media. He knows we have a job to do. Mm-hmm. There is no issues. There is no anger. There is no resentment. There is no, with Tatum, there's a definite level of comfort. I think he enjoys talking to the media. I think he has gained a voice and an opinion. I think that, he was a man of few words when he came to the league. He was very robotic. He was very stiff. Now he jokes, he laughs. He has, he says what he feels. He obviously, drops a curse word here and there, just to let people know if he's a little upset. The same with Jaylen. I think both of them have matured into different and polished men at this point that are now comfortable in their place in the league, in the Celtics, and so they're fine, and that's a good place. And I think people have asked me, well, what's happened? Why are they playing so well together? And I think the key component in any kind of relationship is that they get along. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I said a few years ago, even before all this trade Jaylen and trade Jayson. The biggest thing I saw was that they got along, okay? That they weren't competing with each other. And they were competing with each other like playing one-on-one after practice, that type of thing, but not resentful of each other's success. Mm-hmm. And that's huge when you have teammates who are around the same age. I think Jaylen's like a year and a half. And, we've seen these, dynamic, quote unquote, dynamic duos, guys that were supposed to be, take the league by storm, botch it because they couldn't get along. Or one of them wanted out. Or one of them wanted to be both guys wanted to be A1, and we've seen
Jack
that.
And Penny.
Huh?
Yeah. Jack and Penny.
Or, Garnett and Marbury.
Sure. Yeah.
We've seen that happen. And in this situation, it's not because they know they can coexist. They're not competing for, Jaylen is not after a bunch of endorsements. Jayson is an endorsement guy. Jaylen is doing his social activism and making his statements in his way. Jayson does it in his way. They respect each other. Jayson's obviously as a father of a 5-year-old son. Jaylen doesn't they're different. But I think they respect each other's differences, and that's a great thing for the Celtics organization. That's the best thing you could have hoped for, was they get along, because you don't want guys being jealous of each other, backbiting each other, whatever. And I think that they both have been are now comfortable in their own skin, their own place in the league. And I think that you're right, Adam. I think that finals run kind of took them to another level. There's no more criticism they're going to take that's going to be worse, and especially with Tatum, than after the criticism he took after his finals performance. So I think they're focused. They're focused on getting back to the finals. They're mad. They're playing angry, and I think it's a good thing. You want to play with a little chip on your shoulder. They want to how the Clippers beat them in LA. They want it. You got to play mad. This is a league. I love. As much as Russell Westbrook takes a bunch of criticism, none of y'all my friends. I like that mentality. I think more players need to have that mentality. You ain't my friends. I'm not swapping jerseys. We're not hanging out. I'm here to beat you. You realize that? Now, if I see you in the streets in the summertime, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. I'm not swapping jerseys. I'm not signing. No. That one guy went up to Tom Brady and, hey, I intercepted the ball. Can you sign it for me? What are we doing? That's nice. It's a nice gesture, and it's Tom Brady. I get it. But this is sort of we've become the dream team, the 92 dream team, and Golden players get taking selfies with Charles Barkley. What are we it's different. And I think that the one thing that those guys have, especially Jaylen, is that fire and that competition and play the game angry. And the one thing that I think is been important that I've seen is that revenge factor. They beat us, they tapped us, we don't like that. So you get the Clippers back. Or, next time they go to Indiana, hey, they got us. Let's get them. Or they play one more time that next month in Orlando. Should they be fired up for that game? Hell yeah, they should. They beat us twice at home. They beat us after, during the Christmas time. Some of our families was there. It was embarrassing. So play with a chip on your shoulder. I think those guys have grown to love playing the league, love the life of the league and what it presents, but also playing with that fire that they want to be great. And you don't want guys who don't want to be great. And I think both of them in their way do. We've seen Jaylen improve immensely over the last couple of years in his scoring, his ball handling. Now, obviously, he's still prone to turnovers, still can improve. And we've seen Jayson score in many different ways now. There's no more all 3-point Jayson, or I'm gonna be Kobe Jr. and take this really difficult 18-foot fadeaway with 3 hands in my face to try to show I can be like Kobe. Like, we don't see that much anymore. You know, Tatum is like, I remember talking to Paul Pierce in LA about that move that Tatum made to tie the game and send it into regulation, where he took a pivot away from the basket against LeBron and still hit the fadeaway swish. And I was like, that's a Pierce move. He's like, I was thinking the same thing. That was one of my moves, you know. And you know, Paul's not a humble guy.
No, he is not.
You know, so he was like, "Oh, you thought that too?" Because I was thinking that was me. It's funny, but it's true. You know, Jayson is worked on his game, and now can hit the mid-range jumper with no problem. You know, I'm sure he wishes he was a better 3-point shooter. I think the only thing that's stopping Jayson from being unstoppable is being like that 41% 3-point shooter as opposed to like 36. You know what I'm saying? Like, hit a couple of more threes. I mean, if he was like 41 or 40, I'm not talking about Steph level. He's not like 45 or anything like that. But if he was like 41, remember his rookie year, he's 43. If he ever got to that level where his 3-ball, and who knows, he might be able to pick it up this season. I mean, he'd be totally unstoppable. But now he is developed, Jaylen's developed, and they still have more development to do. And I think that's an encouraging thing for the Celtics.
So, Gary, let's get into it. MVP odds right now. I just detailed all of them. What in your mind needs to happen, I guess, for one guy to set himself apart from the rest? And is it Luka at the moment for you?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. Like, I'm split between Luka and Tatum, but Luka's just putting on those incredible numbers. But the Mavericks aren't as winning as much. You know, obviously they're still kind of in the middle of the pack of the Western Conference, but just the raw numbers that he's carrying the team. And I think the one thing that might boost Luka is the fact that he is carrying the team. And now the question is, you know, if the Celtics, let's say, finish with the best record in the league, but Jaylen Brown's also an all-star, and Malcolm Brogdon is turning another good year, and Marcus Smart, like, you see a supporting cast there, right? In Dallas, you're like Luka and Dinwiddie, Hardaway Jr., Christian Wood. Like, you don't have anything close to a bona fide all-star behind him. So Luka might get credit for like carrying the Mavericks to, you know, 50 wins, 50 and 32, and a third seed, and just, you know, and some of these are video game numbers. Some of these are just so incredible. I know he had 50 against the Rockets, like after having 60 against the Knicks, you know. So I think Luka's probably a leader. Because one, Luka's one of the more popular players in the league. Everybody loves Luka. He came out of nowhere. No one knew much about him in the draft. It was, you know, Phoenix passed on him, took Ayton. Sacramento took Marvin Bagley Jr., which is something that, you know, Vlade Divac basically lost his job over in Sacramento for passing on Luka. It's like you're like one of the first international guys ever, Vlade, and you pass on, like, you know, you're one of the first unknown international players who made one of the strong NBA career. You know, you can talk of Petrovic or Salunas Marciulionis and some of those guys, but Vlade was part of that, like, first class to arrive in the United States that played like in the '88 Olympics, and you pass on the best international prospect. You know, I mean, him and Giannis, obviously, but one of the best international prospects of all time, maybe the best since Dirk. Like, you know, yeah, he lost his job for that. So I think Luka's the leader at this point. Tatum, I think, is going to keep pushing, especially if they have the number one record in the NBA. But I think the fact that Luka, it's like Luka and the Miracles, like Luka is just taking Dallas and putting it on his back and beating teams by himself, and they know that he's going to shoot the ball and they still can't stop it. I think it might be Luka, as the odds say, taking the slight edge, especially after this. I mean, I'm sure he'll probably get Player of the Month in December as we wrap up this month. So I'd say he leads now. But if Dallas, let's say, goes 500, even though, then I think Tatum takes over. I think it all depends on how much does Luka's numbers result in winning. Where Tatum, people I think are going to say, well, you guys are the best team in the league, and they're, you made the finals last year, so this is what you should do. You guys should be the number one seed. But with Luka, them losing Jaylen Brunson to free agency, not really signing anybody. I've been trading for Christian Wood, but Mark Cuban has not done him any favors in terms of getting him frontline talent to work.
Do you currently vote for MVP?
Yes.
So I'm curious, and you could tell me as a voter, it's in the same way that like Shohei Ohtani could be MVP in the American League every single year, because every single year he's going to do something that's never been done other than him, and he may even exceed his own numbers. I think people look at Nick Jokic the same way. Like what he did, obviously carrying that team last year with all those guys hurt, was insane and that much better than what he did the year prior when he had a relatively healthy cast around him. His numbers were still absurd. This year, of course, his numbers are nuts. We see him do things on a given night that have never been done by a man his size before and may never be done again. You could give him MVP every single year. But again, he's won the last two. He's third in the voting right now, or third in the odds right now, I should say. Where does like voter fatigue come in? Is that a real thing? Like, do you sort of, no matter what he does, kind of cross him off because it's, well, he's won the last two and look at what Luka and Tatum are doing?
Yeah, Adam, I think, okay, if I'm not mistaken, so Bird won 3 straight, right? 84 to 86?
Yep.
Okay, Celtics won 2 championships in those 2 years. So they resulted in winning. I think people are tired of the Nuggets getting smacked in the playoffs and being like, yeah, this guy is amazing. Oh, wonderful player. But what the hell, what's going on in Denver? So I think this year there's even more of fatigue, like you say. I voted for Embiid last year. I thought Embiid was just a monster. I thought he did incredible things. I thought he deserved it. I thought Jokic had a great year, but the Nuggets, once again, fell short. So I think people are like, I think that Jokic a couple of years ago was in a position where Luka is now, where Jokic put up such incredible numbers. It was kind of a one-man team, and people said, you know what, we've got to acknowledge how amazing this guy is. So he won 2 years ago, and then he won again last year. So I think 3 straight, it's like, well, where's a championship in there? Or the NBA Finals appearance, or even the Western Conference Finals appearance? Where is any of those? So I think that now you can't
clarify too. The voting happens after the regular season, right?
Yeah, it does. But I think that if people would have looked and saw that the Nuggets would lose to the Warriors and they make the second round again, I think some people might have reconsidered their vote, because I think now people are kind of tired of Denver. Like, Denver's been this quote unquote team on the rise, and they're going to take, and they haven't. And and they're having a nice year this year. That the Celtics play them on Sunday. It'll be a very entertaining game. Celtics Nuggets might be favored. They're going to be tough at home. All those good things, but Denver has not proven it. Right? They've just not gotten it done. Like Porter Jr.'s hurt. Jamal Murray missed a year. And I think that considering that I just think people are a little tired of Jokic, and so I think Luka's in that position a couple of years ago where people were like, this is the guy now. But I think Jokic is incredible. He could win it almost every year. But I think when you won, the last person that won it 3 years in a row, Larry Bird, he won 2 chips. Like, the Celtics were the number 1 seed in the East all 3 of those years. Like, they were running the East when that was going down. Obviously they had the big three: Mikal, Parrish, Ainge, all those guys, Dennis Johnson, and all those guys, Maxwell. But I also think we all acknowledge Bird's greatness. Like, he was doing stuff that other guys didn't do. Jokic is the same way, but I do think, as you said, there's becoming a fatigue of like, that's great and all, but when you win a big game, win a game, win a game on, that you're supposed to. Win a game, that you're not supposed to. Beat Golden State at Golden State and whip them. The things that I think people are asking what's going, like, okay, Denver, show it, especially this year with the West is just wide open.
There are two, before I let you go, there are two C's role players I want to talk about. And spoiler alert, neither one is Rob Williams. We'll save him for next week, and maybe by then he'll be part of the starting lineup again. We'll see. I want to talk about, well, first, Derrick White. Derrick White, I thought it was interesting. I saw it on Twitter earlier. My guy Seth puts out a lot of interesting stuff. He's in our fantasy league and is on the show every once in a while. He tweeted out that his just some net rating numbers courtesy of Cleaning the Glass, that Derrick White on the floor with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown is plus almost 13 per 100 possessions, whereas when Derrick White is off the floor, Tatum and Brown, no White, negative 3.5 is the net rating right there. You are someone, I wanted to bring this up with you in particular, because you are someone who in the offseason, was kind of critical of that Derrick White trade, looking back at last year and obviously the way he played and numbers he put up and the shooting splits and all of that, the latter part of the year before he, settled into his first full season with the team this year, where the numbers have come up. He's much better, all of that. And obviously is, on a night to night basis has been a big part of this team's success. How are you feeling right now about Derrick White and his role on this team, maybe as opposed to where you were a couple months ago?
I'm not as high. I'll say this, like at the end of November I was, but he's had a really tough December. And I know he had a big game against the Clippers and I think he made some big plays. But the word I hear with Derrick constantly is confidence. And I think that we assume that professional athletes, because most of them have amazing amount of confidence, that confidence is not an issue. It sounds like it's an issue with Derrick, okay? It sounds like him coming to Boston last year and being thrown into a situation going from competing for the play-in in San Antonio to like, okay, Derrick, you're our floor-stretching guy. You've got to hit open threes, and you've got to do this because we're trying to win a championship, I think might have overwhelmed him a little bit. And I think that a full training camp and all that did wonders for him. But I also see that he still misses a lot of open shots. I think he can get better. I think he's been better this year. Don't get me wrong. But if you look at if we want to do the splits thing, Adam, his December numbers, and we can look those up real fast.
Sure.
They're not as he struggled this month, as has a lot of the guys. Sam Hauser has hit the skids. Some of the other guys have hit the skids in terms of offensively. But if I look at Derrick White this month,
yeah, I'm pulling him up. Although you might already have him.
23.5% from three, as opposed to 45.7 in November.
Yeah.
37%, 4% from the field. 8.2 points as opposed to 11.6. He's just overall, his numbers have tailed off. He had a really good 22 games. The last 14 have not been good, and that's including the win over the Clippers. Okay, and this is what concerns me, Adam. If you look at his splits, 3-point percentage in his wins, 43.6. In the losses, 17.6. So he's playing well. He's shooting 25% in Celtics losses. Like, that means that in games when they're down, when they need somebody, Derrick is not performing well. And that's the only thing that concerns me. It's great when you are hitting shots when everybody else is. I think personally, I'd like to see Derrick hit more shots when other guys aren't, and be more of 17.3% from three in Celtics losses, like 44% in wins. That's a dramatic. Obviously, every player's numbers are better in wins than losses. Yeah. Okay, so please do not comment and go, "Hey, dummy." Every player's numbers very true, but not this dramatic, right? To where he is Steph Curry in Celtic wins, and he is George Mirasan from the three in
a hell of a comp
in losses, 43.6 to 17.6 from wins to losses. So when the team is down, I'd like to see Derrick carry the team a little bit more, not carry like scoring 20 points in a quarter, but get to a place where he can knock down shots to where it's like, Jayson wasn't good and Jaylen wasn't good, but Derrick was good. Like Malcolm has done that at times, where Malcolm has had 19 points, 21 points, something like that. That's what I need to see personally from Derrick White before I'm like sign off and go, what a great deal, another Brad Stevens coup. I don't feel that way. And I said, it could happen, very much could happen, but to me, I look at that December and he's hit a real wall. Let's see if he can get himself out of it.
I'm glad you brought up Malcolm Brogdon because that's the other guy I want to talk about. And I want to, so I mentioned Seth before, and I texted him right before I came on with you. And I said, about to do a show with Washburn, anything in particular that, you're curious about? And he said, is the team worried about Malcolm Brogdon? And I said, well, in what respect? He said, he sucks. I said, how do you mean? Because the shooting splits are pretty good. And this is what he sent me. He said, by that you mean he's shooting good percentages, but his assist rate is down, turnover rate is way, way up, usage is down, and his defense has been bad. Also, all of those are statistics, by the way. The biggest concern is the combination of the turnovers coupled with the fact that only 17% of his shots are at the rim, which is down from 30% over the past 3 years. So what that means to me is that while he's been decent as a floor spacer, he has specifically not been good at the stuff that they traded him for him to be good at. They need him to be a good secondary ball handler, and instead he's been a spot-up guy who turns it over when he's asked to dribble. What are your thoughts on Malcolm Brogdon, in terms of, what we've seen and obviously hearing all of that?
I think makes some good points. I think Malcolm, what I've seen from Malcolm is better than average, better than expected three-point shooter, not the finisher. He's missed a lot of bunnies. I don't know if that counts into the 17% of I don't know if that's shots made or shots attempted. Where he was making 30% of his makes were at the rim as opposed to 17. So I don't know.
I think it's the percentage of his shots that he's taking at the rim.
Okay. So I've seen him personally. He's missed a lot of bunnies this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also think he has turned the ball over a lot on his dribble. And I don't know. I don't think they're concerned, but I think they feel like he can get better. And if you're the Celtics, you hope he gets better. I'm not talking about he's been bad. But like you said, as a secondary ball handler, there's been some big threes that he's just clanked, but there's times that he has gotten going. He has become like Vinnie Johnson. Like he's just become this microwave guy where, you look at the Clippers game last night, you look at Norman Powell. Okay. Norman Powell scored a lot, didn't shoot well, but he scored a lot, and he was a threat. And that's kind of what I'm looking from Malcolm, where he's taking his shots, but he's hitting some key buckets. But if you look overall, I'm not saying he's shooting bad from the field, but he's not, he's not 9 for 10. Powell was not efficient offensively, but he was scoring. And I think that that's what they're getting from Brogdon as much. Probably more than they thought. Like, the 3-point shots are going down. I think he's doing well now, but the finishing, the dribbling, and kind of the turnovers, he's not as efficient. I'll put it like a pal as you'd like. I think people believed that he was going to be this efficient, kind of like calming guys down, running the offense. Remember, it was like, well, is he going to be in the game in the fourth quarter with 6 minutes left and the 6-point lead? I don't think I don't think we've even considered that at this point right now. So I don't think he's been bad. I don't think his defense has been great. I think he's picked up some touch fouls because guys are driving past him, but I think he's been solid. I don't think they've needed him to be great. I think that there's some improvement that could be made, but I don't think it's quote unquote a concern where management is saying, "Hey, who is this guy?" Like, we don't recognize the guy that we thought he'd be much better. I don't think they're saying that either. I think that they're encouraged, but knowing that he can get better. Because I'm looking at his stats. Honestly, 1.8 turnovers. He averages, that's his per game. His rate is higher because he played 33 minutes last year and he had 2.1. He's playing 23. He has 1.8. Mm-hmm. He's shooting 43.3% from three. That's his best, since his Milwaukee days. 86% from the line. His assist rate's down, but he's also playing 10 fewer minutes than he did when he was last year in Indiana. So could you attribute it to lack of minutes, to his role, all the above? I do think, but he's shooting almost 49% from the field. He's a career 46% shooter. He is, numbers-wise, he's hitting everything except his turnover rate's a little high and his assist rate's a little down. But I kind of think that's nitpicking. But the defense thing, I think, is a really valid point there. Can he step up his defense? I mean, he shot 54% from three in November. Mm-hmm. Now he's at 34.7 in December. Everybody struggled in December. But his turnovers are down in December, so his assists are up in December. So I think give him some time, and I think Malcolm's had some injuries. He's already missed 6 games. Given his history, he's not one of those 82 game a year guys. He's more like 66 to 70. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here and see if he can just up his game a little bit, and I think he'll be fine. I don't look at his numbers and think alarming. I think what I've seen is the turnovers and some missing some real bunnies. And that's what I've seen.
Well, you wouldn't know from these last couple topics we're talking about the best team in the NBA, huh?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, what a close to 2022, and I don't mean this podcast, I mean the team. And looking ahead to what should be, I'm with you and everything that we talked about earlier. I think it's going to be a prosperous 2023. I really do believe that. Gary, we'll have you on the show again in a couple months. Don't like to bug you too often, but always appreciate your generosity in coming on, and we'll catch you in the fantasy streets sometime soon, I'm sure.
Sounds great. It's great. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Gary Washburn. I am Adam Kaufman for Evan Valenti as well, who's lurking, maybe doing some production behind the scenes for this show. We thank all of you for tuning in over the course of the last year. We're not going anywhere. We're back with you again next week, just like the Celtics. Talk to you again soon.